Yo, here we are, the Q&A that I set out to do. I originally planned to do this at the Heartland Festival some weeks ago, but since that didn't happen because the festival was too good, I'll do it now instead. But I got some more questions in, so that's good. There's a bit of different questions in there. So I got them here. Let's just start. So the first question is, are you willing to do a meal plan for a non-vegan? Boom. Yes and no. It's funny. It's funny to think about it, because like ethically, value-wise, it feels funny that I would do that. But then again, it's not me that I'm making the meal plan for. So in that sense, yes, I would be able to. I wouldn't mind that. It's up to each and all of us to decide what we want to eat. But then again, if why do they come to me then? Why don't they just pick like any other coach out there? Because there's so many. So why would they come to me for that? Maybe it's because they want to transition, and that's another thing. So in that sense, I could do it as well, of course. But another thing is that I haven't been eating meat for 5 years, and I haven't been eating animal products for 4 years. So I myself have a little bit of a hard time, like, how should I put it together if I were to make it. So I don't know. It would feel a bit funny, I think. And I think people should, if they don't want a vegan meal plan, they should go somewhere else. Maybe there's some other one who can help them more than I can. But let's see. Okay, next question. How did you feel mentally and physically when you were at your lowest body fat in the competition preparation? What was the most difficult part of the prep? I would say I felt pretty good mentally and physically throughout the most of the prep. There were some few times where I felt pretty hungry is a word, but more like craving for food. And I think when I look back and look at my plan, it was periods where I didn't sleep well, or where I have just like miscalculated my calories, or I had like a super active day and I didn't regulate my calories according to that, because I did do my nutrition myself and all my meals and how many calories I was getting. I was regulating that myself. So sometimes I just did a analysis of the day. So I didn't really get what I wanted, but I did have, I don't know, maybe 5 days in general, like 5 days, not straight, but spread out. That was really, really tough mentally, but physically it was more okay. I think it's okay to go through the few hunger periods that I had, but again, I ate a lot of food. The lowest I was like 3,400, so that's still a very big bulk of food compared to a lot of other people. So I was lucky in that, or lucky, that's how it is for me. It's different for everyone. Yeah, and what was the most difficult part of the prep? Well, I think it was just getting everything together, because you're like aiming for this one day where you have to get everything together, and you know all the decisions you make throughout the prep is of importance in some way, and the better you do it. So it was more because I had a coach helping me with my training, which was good, but with everything else I did it myself, which was fun, that because it made me had to go through a lot of articles and a lot of YouTube videos to educate myself in it, but it also made me like question what I was doing as well. So I think that was a bit difficult to learn all of these things and still not knowing what would be the right choice for me to do. What should I do in this situation? What should I do in that situation? But physically it was okay. mentally sometimes struggling. I think maybe actually the most difficult part of the prep was actually keeping on top of my food, like making sure that I was getting what I needed, more of a from a planning perspective, that every day you have to make sure you got all your food with you, and yeah, you have food for every day and throughout the day, and yeah, don't skip the meals and all that. So like planning has always been a hurdle, so that I really got tested in, but it was still okay, you know. So another question is, what role does your vegan lifestyle play in your athletic career? So that's an interesting one, and the most honest answer would be I don't know, because I don't know what to compare it with, since I worked out a bit before I went vegan, but not in the same way, not as intense, and and with the same purpose that I have today. So I don't have anything like to compare it to, but I guess that's also one perspective of the question. But of course my vegan lifestyle like plays a big role for me, because that's the big purpose in it for me, like to explore these what do you say, these aspects of living, which it is. Like, is it possible to work out and be vegan and all that? And it drives me a lot to be a vegan in it, because there's a lot of things to improve in this world. So in that way, my vegan lifestyle is fueling me quite a bit. When I'm in the gym and feeling like I can't go anymore, and you think about what's at stake, then you really get fired up, I would say. So in that way, it makes a big, it makes a big, it has a big impact. And food-wise, like I said earlier, I ate like 3,400 calories even in the last week leading up to the competition, and a lot of people didn't do that. And I don't know, like, I have a fast metabolism, but that's still a lot of food, and I was a lot smaller. I was smaller than the other guys competing, and I was eating a lot more food. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the vegan lifestyle, like the foods I chose to eat, but maybe. I've heard other bodybuilders that actually have done like they were eating meat and dairy and eggs beforehand, and then they tried to do a vegan prep, like they were doing their preparations for the competition as a vegan, and they said it was easier than before. So maybe there's something to it. There's only one way to find out, is to try it, you know, for yourself as well, if you want to know. So, but I definitely felt good. I felt the preparations was easier than I thought, as long as I got my sleep in, and as long as I made sure to get my meals with me every day. Yeah. So, how do I... This is another question, different type. Like, this is... how do you keep up your morale when the world is pulling bacon jokes on you? Well, I don't always. Yeah. I don't know. You just learn to brush it off, I guess, in a way, because you have to. Otherwise, you would just be angry and mad and sad all the time. So, I think that's... I think it's more like a matter of survival than anything else. Like, because at points, now it's a different situation in my life now than it was, say, 3 or 4 years ago, because now a lot more of my peers, like my friends and family and the people I hang out with in the world in general, are more open. But back then there was a lot more making fun of, and more jokes and less understanding, and it was hard. And I didn't keep up my morale all the time. I got mad, I got pissed, I get pissed as well sometimes. I just try to handle it differently now. I just the biggest reason is that probably, or like my thought is that it doesn't help anything to become mad. Doesn't really change anything, doesn't help. What I'm doing doesn't make my relationship to my friends better if I become mad at them for it. And sometimes I do laugh as well, even though it's a bit of a tragic joke, the bacon jokes. I sometimes laugh as well. Like, the joke itself is not hurting anyone. Like, that's just words. But sometimes those jokes come from someone who doesn't think further than that. So they actually mean it, maybe. But that's just the way it is. Gotta try to keep that morale high, otherwise we're gonna die in just like all the shit that goes on in the world, of course. So that would be my answer for that, I guess. Back to the meals. What is my meals consisting of? What is your protein sources? Do you minimize carbs? And let me start from the last one. Do I minimize carbs? Hell no. Not at all. And not in my prep either. During my preparation I was eating 60% of my food was coming from carbohydrates, of the energy of my food. So calorie wise. And that was about 500 grams of calorie, or 500 grams of carbs a day, from all types of different sources. Not a lot of processed sugar, a little bit, but primarily starches, so rice and oats primarily, and then fruits as well, dates, bananas, berries, other fruits as well. So yeah, not at all. And what does my meal consist of? Well, that's very changing. It's very different from meal to meal, but breakfast would typically be oats based, so oatmeal, or in Denmark we also do cold oats, where you just put oats in a bowl and pour, when I was a kid it was just milk, now it's just soy milk on it, and just eat it like that actually, with something on like raisins or bananas and seeds, nuts and seeds, shredded coconut, jam, peanut butter, raisins, walnuts, hemp seeds, cacao, chocolate, blueberries, yeah, you name it, sunflower seeds, could be anything, agave syrup. So that would be a typical breakfast. Today I had bread with different things on. Bread, peanut butter and jam, with bread with hummus, bread with seitan, which is this wheat gluten thing. Yeah, had that today. And then from there on it can be all kinds of things, like rice fried vegetables and beans, or rice fried vegetables and tofu, or seitan, like that. Smoothies, pita bread with vegetables, whatever in it. Burgers I like a lot, also in my prep I had them. Even under my prep I ate burgers, yes, with tofu most of the time, or seitan in it. Pasta dishes with tomato sauce and different veggies in it. Like, it seems so weird to, like, it's basically the same. It's the same kinds of foods that you like that everyone eats basically. It's not that different. It's just like a few ingredients that's different, I would say. So, but I always like try to get, you know, some kind of not for each meals, but each day I try to get like oats and rice and beans in, and soy milk, tofu. And some days I don't get like everything of that, but I try to mix it up a little bit. But there's a lot of things to go for, I would say. Tortilla is also an easy and good one. Salads are good as well. Yeah. And what is my protein sources? Well, it's everything. So that's the big misconception, that you need to have one source of protein. If you look up a average person as well, like if you have like a bowl of oats with milk on it, I think there's more protein from the oats than there is from the milk. And your body doesn't care where the protein's coming from. So it doesn't matter if it's from meat or from nuts or from bananas, because there's also protein in bananas. Not as much as meat, but there's still some. But if you take the higher or the more like higher protein sources, yeah, then you're looking at seitan is one of the big ones. Has a lot of protein in it. Bean pasta, like black bean pasta or soybean pasta. There's also like lentil pasta now, I think, which are pretty high. And then, you know, see lentils, beans, all that you can think of, like red lentils, green lentils, beluga lentils, navy beans, chickpeas, green peas, corn as well, oats, breads, spelt wheat, starches in general, rice, quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat, all these things that makes up my protein sources. Nuts as well. So like that's an interesting concept of where do you get your protein as well. So if you eat a lot of oils, then that source, the oil source doesn't come with any protein in it. But if you eat nuts instead, there is a lot of protein in that. So if you have 100 grams of nuts, then you'll have probably somewhere between like 22 to 30 grams of protein in that, and about, let's say, 50 grams of fat. Whereas if you eat oil, 100 grams of oil, that's 100 grams of oil and nothing else. So there's a lot more calories and a lot less all other macronutrients in it. So I would definitely go for nuts and seeds for my fat sources. And on to the next question is a good one from my good friend Rasmus. He's asking, when are we gonna meet up? Well, I don't know. We've been trying to set it up for some time, but it doesn't really match our schedules, so we'll figure it out sometime, man. Hopefully during this summer. Who knows? Do I drink alcohol? Yes, I do. Do I drink a lot? No. I don't. I don't have like any... I was about to say I don't have anything against it, which I don't know if I have. Actually, haven't thought about that, but I don't do it. Of course, leading up to the competition, I didn't really do. I did have like a week before the competition, I actually had 2 beers and I got pretty tipsy because I didn't have beers and I was just low in body fat. So, but I do drink alcohol occasionally. But I never really have a big night out. That's very rarely. But I do. I like my beers. Some wine every now and then. And the last question is it not funny that you work for Danish Crown? And Danish Crown, for all of you who don't know who that is, who or what that is, that's the slaughterhouse in Denmark. So when I was a vegetarian 5 years ago, I guess it was back in 2012, the summer. So yeah, about 5 years ago, I was transitioning to becoming a vegetarian back then. But I was working in a slaughterhouse. Yes, I was not in the kill section, but in the pork chop section. So I was handling tons of pig flesh every day. And I didn't see it the same back then as I do today, and I would never do that today unless I really had to, like, gun to my head, had to, just because that would be weird, standing there doing that. But back then I actually said that I was pulling money out of the corporation because I was working there and I was getting money from the company, and I was taking that money and spending it on vegetables instead and not buying the meat products. I was taking money from the company and then I was putting it into like the vegetables instead. So that was what I said back then. But it is a bit funny to think back about that. But shout out to Fraser Bailey out there, who was actually, before he became vegan, he was himself a butcher, and he made the transition. So and he's a good guy. Check him out on his Facebook site, Evolving Alpha. It's a really good one. It's a very interesting story he has to tell as well about the disconnect of what we as a butcher or as working at a slaughterhouse as well, what we do. You know, you handle all this meat, doesn't affect you. You go out, you see someone mistreating a dog and it offends you. That's weird. But this is the first Q&A, and I don't know how long it's been, and hope you enjoyed, and I'll do another one sometime. So if you got some more questions, I guess you can post them in the comment section here, and I can keep track of them and yeah, make another one in the future, who knows when. But have a great weekend, and I will see you somewhere. Peace.